How's it going, everybody? This is Juan Galt with Crypto TV. We got an audio interview today with Kimmel. Kimmel is with Peer2 Group. He is involved with the Komodo electorate or elected group that got the most votes out of all of them. And I believe you guys got two notary notes. So congratulations on that. How's your day going, Kimmel?
Hi, Juan. How are you doing? Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you online talking today, because we've heard a lot from Juan last year. So it's a pleasure to finally be able to talk to each other. So yes, it's a fact. We got a lot of votes, and you're right. I'm still wondering how we did it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic experience. I kind of had a similar experience last year when I ran, because it was kind of like that. Like you're jumping into a pool and you don't know if you're gonna catch a big boat or a small boat or what's gonna happen. And then I caught a really big boat, so I think I can sort of sympathize with that experience. And it's a very interesting experience. Do you wanna just to introduce people to that may not know you? What I think this for those
Yeah.
that are listening to this, this is obviously about the Komodo elections, so we don't have to introduce Komodo too much. There's a lot of videos on Komodo that I've done on my YouTube channel and other media that you can sort of get an update. You can watch my four favorite things about the Komodo blockchain, and that's a good introduction if you're new to Komodo. Kimmel, what are some of the things that Peer2 Group, the organization you're with, offered the Komodo community, just so they can get a sense of it?
Yeah, first of all, I have to say that I really enjoyed the elections. It was a really new experience for me. So, and I found it really appealing to see all the candidacies from a lot of people in the community. I've been reading for lots of years and reading their proposals. So I think it was a very really interesting experience to live these elections. I've got a really good result, and I'm thankful, but that's also a huge responsibility for me. So this year, in fact, I take it really seriously. So me and my team on Peer2 Group, we are committed because we have a lot of support to do a good job into helping Komodo evolve. And for me, that's the point I would like to focus on. As a group, as a company, we are trying to help Komodo come online to get to a wider public, and I think that's a key factor for Komodo. It's to allow a lot of crypto companies to grow inside their ecosystem, and we are just one of these companies. I think it's very important that it's not only us, but a lot of people and companies which get involved into making this project grow. So yes, our focus is actually into making crypto and Komodo available for people around the world, and one of the parts that we want to focus is on bridging, and I've been working in that for last 2 years, and I think Komodo community is aware of that because I've been in contact with them many times, and that's why we partnered with them recently. It's on bringing crypto to fiat gateways, which I think it's very important. It's like bridging together this analogic world, this analogic reality that is around us, with our digital world, which is Komodo, and all the possibilities of blockchain technology, in fact.
Excellent. Are there any specific milestones that you can share right now that you are aiming to achieve this year?
Well, I think you can have a quick look on what we are doing on our page, which is Peer2 Group, and we are also on our Medium account. We are releasing, or we're trying to release, more or less 1 month or between 1-2 months updates of what we are doing. But we are focusing now into putting online several services, which I think they will be valuable for the community. And some of them, probably you will be aware of them. It's the ones that we were commenting during elections, which is like putting up a Komodo Explorer to get to see the asset chains and all the Komodo stuff going online these days. And then help also from the infrastructure side, help maintaining all the wallets, all the SPV servers. We're working on that because that will be also useful for ourselves, because creating a wallet, creating wallets, I think it's a very important step for any crypto community like Komodo. So we're definitely working in these days into making all this happen. That's why we've been a little bit quiet last month, because we won elections, but now it's time to work. That's what we're doing now.
I can definitely I agree with you that, you know, and this is one of the campaigns that I one of the things that I ran on was the wallet development seems to me to be kind of a mission critical. And you know, I was you know, offering like, yeah, let's move forward barter decks, let's put some more money into it, let's move that forward. So you know, I think it's great that you guys are putting your attention towards wallet development as well. I agree that that's very important. I want to ask you a little bit more, like just sort of your background story, because I find that really interesting. But is there anything else you want to mention as far as like some of the things that you guys want to achieve this year?
I think this year it's it's a key year for Komodo. I think it's very important to have this in mind. As a blockchain company, I think we would like to see Komodo going public, going into mainstream, not mainstream, but into a technical mainstream, let's say it like that. And we would like to support its growth. So that's why we are here. That's our idea. I would like to see barter decks advancing. I would like to see all the Agama wallets that are being developed, the mobile wallet and the Insight Explorer and all this technical stuff advance, because I think it's really important. And we as a company, we will try to be there to help this grow, to also put to help this grow and also put our part on this. So I think it's really important to, you know, to keep open source, for example. I think that's a key factor. That's something that can make the difference on other blockchains that, you know, where greed comes and everybody wants to close source everything to make profit, but that's not going to be at the end what's going to make the blockchain successful. In our case, we need to be sure that we make an open source platform, because that's a key factor to make change happen, you know, in a lot of parts, on a lot of countries, on a lot of people can engage into the development and into building services on that.
Yeah. Open source is very powerful and sort of established way to keep things fairly secure. So that's a great thing to go for. That's awesome. All right, and Kimmel, why don't you tell us a little bit about your backstory? How did you end up in Komodo? Yeah, also, yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. I think we have, if you want to have a look into our Medium page, we have some articles that we released during last month. I explained there a little bit more in depth how did we get to Komodo. But what I like to remember is something that JLL777 said many times when he started SuperNet. And I think it's still true. It's that SuperNet, it's about uniting blockchain. And I think that vision has kept last 4 years, and that's why I'm here now. And I see how BarterDex, for example, it's evolving, which is already covering more than 95% cryptocurrencies, and I say, hey, that's becoming something true. So I think this vision on Komodo, this supernet vision, it's still true. So I think it's good to see that keeping as time goes by. So that's 3 years, seeing such consistency in the message, in the underlying message. I think it's very important for Komodo. So if at the day I see that the message keeps changing from day to night, I think I probably will drop but the Komodo community. But I think it's a very important part to keep some consistency on that. I think another key factor is privacy. I know this is a critical part when switching, when switching to analogic, when switching to fiat. Privacy, it's almost always lost because at some point you must say who you are. But while working on the blockchain, I think the fungibility, that my coin is the same as your coin, and it doesn't have a background. That's a key factor. And keeping this supernet idea of uniting blockchain and this privacy on chain, I think it's a key factor for the success of Komodo.
Yeah. Anonymity is often misinterpreted or misrepresented as some kind of shady thing, and what are you trying to hide type of thing. That's a line that if you have nothing to fear, you have nothing to hide. That's a line by a Nazi sort of propaganda master, right?
Yeah, right.
Joseph Goebbels came up with that, right? And the answer is it's not none of your business, right? But then on top of that, like for an economic sort of currency like sort of application that it's meant to have high volume, you actually functionally economically need privacy within blockchains because they allow you to have fungibility, which is what you said. Every coin is equal and none are good and none are bad. They are all the same. So it's like token egalitarianism or something like that. It's another way of putting it. And so yeah, I agree that that's that's an essential part of it. But yeah, it does seem like Komodo is going is very interested in obviously reaching, creating these fiat gateways and reaching kind of like a more sort of mainstream financial audience and getting them in, bringing businesses and all that. And that's gonna that may come with some privacy compromises, and people certainly have the option to do that if they so wish. Would you agree that that's like a kind of emerging focus of the Komodo ecosystem to get business in, and even if that means that they will ask, you'll have to KYC for certain aspects of it if you so wish, right? Like there's not, or am I off in that?
No, I totally agree with you. But we have to keep in mind that when switching to the analogic world, KYC it's necessary at certain point. So that's something we all should agree on. And who doesn't, he's going to be on the darknet. So he's not going to survive legally talking for too long. But however, I think it's important to keep the digital privacy valid, because otherwise we're going to end up with governments governing all the blockchain space, and that's what I would not like to see. I know that is going to happen at some point. I know that governments are going to try to identify each blockchain address with a physical person, but I think that it's possible to keep niche markets, and I think privacy coins can be a niche market with some digital privacy, and then work on, of course, on fiat gateways, because they are necessary to onboard people into blockchain. So I think we have some margin for that. Another point I like about Komodo, and I think it's focusing a lot on it. It's the asset chains technology. So bringing the ability to create, your own coin or your own token for for anything, to store data, to I don't know, to make a reward token. And I think chain makers, that's right, another node, they were elected, I think. They are working on that. So I think it's really interesting to see this kind of projects, because I think Komodo market, Komodo platform needs to also to build this opportunity, because there is obviously a market to create tokens, and I think it's a really interesting market too.
Yeah, and it's not you know, and a lot of these tokens are not necessarily currencies, and so there's a lot of potential to innovate on these tokens. They're a lot of them can be sort of financial assets or financial technologies, sort of that I think, you know, there's a lot of room to experiment. So that's very exciting. You entered Komodo. You entered Komodo back in the early days, right? When NXT was involved, when it was called SuperNet. Do you want to tell us a little bit about sort of what, you know, that part of the story, and what kind of stuff do you remember, or were you involved with that is sort of kind of exciting and relevant to what you're up to today?
Yeah, you're right. I think I joined Next at that time, and SuperNet, like at the early 2014. So yeah, it's some years ago right now already. And overall, I have like the impression sometimes that not so many things have changed. So when I joined, you know, the SuperNet and Next platform, there was already these assets that could be created. There were these interests that could be rewarded to the token holders. So it's just, I think, the making this reach reality what has changed. But I'm still amazed sometimes how similar in some points the things are to the past. So yeah, there is the smart contracts thing, which has changed a lot with Ethereum and all this. But some basic things, like we can tell this like a DAO, no? Some kind of DAO. It was already there, the technology. So it's more or less the same, but it's more widespread, and everybody's talking about it, and everybody is thinking, how can we incorporate this into reality? Which I think it's the hard job. It's not the technology, but putting this technology to work with reality. That's really, there is a lot of things to talk and to comment and to discuss on how to make this happen. I mean, we partnered, for example, we partnered with an NGO in Africa, in Senegal, because I have some very close friends who are working there, and I told them, hey, we have an opportunity here to bring this to Africa, but then how the hell are we going to make blockchain work in Senegal with people that lives in a I don't know, in, you know, in a wood house? I mean, and this effort, this trying to think how this is going to happen, I think it's a very important part of the process of bringing blockchain to the people, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting challenge. I find that I was just traveling in Belize, which is kind of like a Caribbean common law sort of British colony, and so everybody is like a Caribbean country, but they all speak English, which is really interesting. And their infrastructure is very minimalist. They barely have internet. The internet that's good is in good restaurants or decent restaurants. To get a SIM card, you got to do a massive lineup, very bureaucratic, and then you got to give your, you know, some information, and then you get the SIM card, and now you have some data. But it's not as accessible as in other sort of more developed countries like Mexico or Canada, the United States, or pretty much anywhere else that's more developed. And so, yeah, how do you bring blockchain down there? It's a very interesting problem. And, you know, one of the things that I found is you want to start like a grassroots crypto community and ask people who want to bring in cash, then that's the way to bring them in crypto. And then maybe then you can start converting crypto into food and start doing sort of NGO stuff or nonprofit stuff. But yeah, it's a very interesting challenge, and you know, digital to analog is probably one of the areas that has the most development to do in the crypto space. I find that a lot of crypto projects are very much in like sort of sci-fi mode. Like, you know, how many years has, for example, Augur spent trying to develop this prediction market? And I don't know that they're not doing a good job. Like, they may be working really hard at doing this thing, but it's some degree it's so complicated and so futuristic sci-fi style that it's just taken a long time, right? And so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing and working on projects that are bringing it into the analog world as well. Anyway, just yeah.
Yeah, I think that's okay. Something really important. You know, well, at least I like to focus on things that can be done. I mean, I'm not a genius. I'm not going to invent the next proof of work. I know that. So what I really like is to say, hey, how can I bring this technology that more or less I understand to something which can be useful today? Or how can I help, I don't know, my people I know onboard Bitcoin or onboard Komodo, and more or less in a distributed way, because I really like this approach, you know, this fail-proof approach, and I don't really enjoy seeing, you know, centralized change. For example, I I I think everything has to be more or less, if not decentralized, because that's sometimes impossible. At least risk has to be minimum. That's why when, for example, we were running our peer-to-cash proof of concept, we were okay, let's work in a way that we can distribute the risks. So it's if at some point I get hacked, I can cover the losses because the funds that are on transit are minimum. So like you said before, there is a lot of people like trying to build science fiction technology, like you said, Augur, but there are many other projects are trying to revolutionize many things, many fields, and I feel a lot of respect for these people, but they are working in a 10 years time frame, and I just like to work for today, for next month, to bring solutions today, not in 10 years. This distributed computers, for example, which is an amazing technology. I'm sure it's going to change a lot of things, but not today and not tomorrow. It's a long-term work. And on the other hand, I like to work, on the present, trying to bring that to the reality. I think it's kind of complementary approaches.
Yeah, and I agree with that general vision, and and there's a lot of things that we can kind of continue to push, but yeah, I mean, I find this space to be very much in its infancy still, even though it's growing and it's growing at a steady rate. It is very much in its infancy, so it's exciting. There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of infrastructure work to do. I'm learning a lot of wallet development, a lot of sort of servers, a lot of scaling kind of work, a lot of just community building, and there's a lot of infrastructure work to be done. So there's anybody that's remotely aware of crypto should not really worry about money, because there's a lot of work to do. Just bring your talent and you'll figure something out. All right. I wanted to ask you, because one of the reasons that I'm talking to you is that you and Peter Cash got the most votes during the Komodo election. And I'm curious what your sense is of why you guys won. Like how what happened?
That's a really good question. I think, I don't know, what I can say is that I tried to do things the best way me and my team could, and it turned out that we received a lot of votes. I would like to think that we did a good job, but I think a lot of people did a good job. A lot of candidates did a good job. So that's I think I don't have a clear explanation. You're trying me to make me guess why people voted. I really don't know who voted me. So some people say, oh, maybe you have a secret agreement with somebody. No, somebody asked me questions. Hey, we have read your website, your proposal, and I was clarifying some doubts, and I was mainly trying to clarify them in our public channel on Peer2Cloud Slack channel, because so all the people in the channel could see. So I didn't have to explain, you know, like 10 times the same things. So that's just to be clear for everybody. And that's all. We also were making some marketing in some Spanish forums, for which is called Forobits, because I think that there is some Spanish guys in Komodo community, and sometimes they don't get like their attention, like they don't have a lot of Spanish conversations to be in. So as we also talk Spanish, I was trying also to share our proposal in Spanish. But I think there is also what people said, that it was a very important, these elections were very important to see new people joining the notary nodes, because I think running a notary node is a very serious engagement for 1 year, and it requires to have a professional team behind. And I think it's not something that, you know, someone can wake up one day and say, oh, I want to do this. I think it needs some professional work behind, and the means to maintain this during 1 year at least, and then the means, the commitment and the vision, and to share the vision with Komodo until a certain point. So I think it's not. I think that these are factors that can influence into getting votes, but I don't have a real answer for what you asked.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating, and well, clearly you did something right. You did something that you have the grace of the hodlers, and that's a wonderful thing. So keep doing what you're doing, and keep that passion and that commitment and that momentum. Because obviously, people want it.
Yeah, thank you for.
One of the
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I found really interesting about this election that I mentioned in a video I recently made, and I'm curious what you think about it, is that it seems like there was a kind of a grassroots sort of movement inside of Komodo to put pressure on any companies that had multiple supernodes. And the way that it worked last year is that, some people got one or two, some people got four, a variety of people got four. And this year's distribution, half of the people that had supernodes lost their supernodes, and the people that got supernodes got less than, like, very few people got more than one. And I believe you guys got two, and somebody else got two supernodes, and that was it. Everybody else has got one from this election, and maybe they had one from the last election, but there's a lot less companies now that have multiple nodes. Does that echo your experience?
First of all, I think, I wanted to thank you for your comments. Yes, we are passionate on our work, and I think that's really important for me. That's why I'm here, because I like this, and I share Komodo vision. So that's why I want to push ahead Komodo, and I hope that was one of the reasons that people felt that the people are supporting us. And another good reason, I think, that we're going to push, or I personally want to push Komodo into some of our products. So I think that's a win-win relation, and I think that's good for everyone. That said, about notary nodes being more distributed, I think it's perfect. So I agree, it's good to have more operators running the nodes, and I also think it's good, to keep the best performing nodes from 1 year to another, to give some stability to the network. So yeah, overall, I think notary nodes are going to play a very important role in Komodo, and probably in 2 years, if Komodo goes ahead with the vision they are planning, supernodes or notary nodes will be like really important part of it, and a critical part of Komodo infrastructure. So I think that means having a lot of technical resources and high-speed servers and servers from the future that some people say on place. So last year for me, I even didn't think about joining elections. This year, I had the team to join, so I decided to join. Next year, I think it will be a really, really hard elections too, because this is going to get really like a professional. So it will not be up to everyone to say, hey, I'm going to put my candidacy and see if I get elected. It's going to get harder and harder each year because you need like a good team behind.
And you mentioned that you mentioned products. The word products earlier in regards to peer-to-group. What did you mean by products?
I can explain. I'm not going to invent anything. It's everything on our website, so it's quite clear. We are working on cards, peer-to cards. We're working to bring debit cards to Komodo. I don't know exactly how, but we're going to do that because I have a special interest on pushing that ahead. Then we are also working on the peer-to-fund, which it's part of our token, and that was one of the things that we are going to airdrop. 2% of our tokens to the Komodo community, and we will also give some tokens to our voters. That was part of the deal when we make the candidacy, and we're working on that. So that's a very important step for us, bringing our token, but also on a totally legal solution. That's the hardest part, and that's what we have been working on last month, and I hope that we can be done for this summer. That's the timeline I put to release the tokens. And our peer-to-fund, I think when people talks about tokens, they talk a lot about these tokens that can be used for something inside the application, but we are talking in this case that tokens that have something behind them. They have some underlying asset, because I think that's what gives value to a token. So that's why we are working on our token, on our peer-to-fund, which means that a part of all the volume that goes on our products goes to that peer-to-fund to give value to the assets. So part of not of our benefit, but even more of our volume. Just if a trade goes into our site, or if some volume goes into our mining, in fact, we are giving 10% of our mining to this crypto fund to give our tokens a real value, because I think it's really important these days that everybody is creating tokens, and some tokens don't even have a sense. And I think it's important that a token has a sense and has an underlying value. And in this case, if we do a good job, this value will be growing. I think that's really important when releasing a token.
Yeah, that's a very interesting idea. And I agree with you that there has to be some sort of underlying value, underlying asset, underlying, proposition or vision that's got real potential. And people will be the judges of that, and they will judge with their own money. And so that's very interesting, very exciting. I'm looking forward to kind of following up, with your project and a variety of other projects that are working, happening in Komodo. And yeah, it's really exciting to see some of the experimentation happening within cryptocurrencies with these tokens and all the things that are going on. Any last thoughts? Anything else you'd like to touch on before we conclude?
Well, I would say I would like to see like our project evolve, but also all the other projects that I know that people is engaging on within Komodo. So I would like to see this year, at the end of this year, that Komodo has become a little bit more mainstream than today, because that will mean that we have succeeded and that Komodo is succeeding, and probably that other projects are succeeding too. So I think that's my hope for this year, to be a bit more scalable, to be a bit more ready for reality.
Yeah, sounds good. And that goes back to infrastructure stuff that we were talking about, and that kind of technology. Is there any particular project or proposal that you found really interesting personally that you'd like to kind of like bring some attention to?
You mean inside Komodo
Yeah,
or
yeah,
anywhere?
inside Komodo.
I think I'm lacking some kind of. I'm not going to answer directly, but I'm lacking some kind of not accelerator, because I quite hate this term, but send some point where people can deep into the different projects that are being born within the Komodo community. I think that would be helpful to see all these projects that are related to Komodo. That would be really interesting, because I know some of them, but probably I don't have a good knowledge of some other ones. So I know many that are going on, like Monets and Utrum and Chain Makers. I think that's their name. But I think on the marketing side, or I don't know, on the organization side, that would be really helpful to see how Komodo it's creating its own ecosystem.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you, and that was basically the most exciting thing that I was interested in doing with Komodo, with the extra nodes. And I think we can still probably do something like this. It would be really interesting, is to form some kind of incubator is another word used for it. And I know what you mean. For those that don't know what we're talking about, it's basically there's something used in the startup versus VC sort of ecosystem in the United States and other economies, where you have people that are A, experienced in business, B, experienced, that are wealthy and experienced in investment, and then they create, let's say, a space, a co-working space where startups can come and work there and interact with other startups and interact with these sort of business experts and investment experts, and they form relationships and agreements in order to help them get to the point that they can actually launch to market, and do like lean startup machine kind of strategies where you're sort of testing at every step of the way, making sure you're staying on touch with the flows of the market, right? And there's a lot of potential to do that. And if we could do some sort of distributed kind of like online, forum like ecosystem like that, that'd be really cool. I can't do it on my own. I'd be happy to help in certain ways. And if people are interested in this kind of idea, I think I'd be interested in throwing some
Yeah,
energy at
sure.
that.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Because we can get all the Komodo, we can get a lot of the Komodo nodes, the super nodes, and there's going to be enough money there that we can actually start putting it in. But we're going to need business developers that are experienced. We're going to need VCs that are experienced, right? And we can do this within Komodo in the crypto space, and I think that could help us help a lot of these startups actually sort of move forward. Great idea.
Yeah, that's a good point, and especially given that I think this year it's key. It's a key year to start creating a kind of this Ethereum Enterprise Alliance. I don't like it at all, because everybody who's there, it's like too big companies. But when you're a smaller project, I think it's good to have some kind of this organization which has within as notary nodes, startup companies that really want to build something on Komodo, and have some kind of forum, and maybe organize some yearly event to meet and to work and to help Komodo developers. Hey, tell them, hey, we need that, or we want that, or we find useful this, or and also to collaborate into putting together code like we are already doing, because A lot of people is working on Komodo Explorer and many on Komodo wallets, and they are open sourcing it. But bringing that to another level and to a kind of distributed organization with many companies in that inside that, I think, like you said, it's a very interesting thing that would be really interesting to see this year happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it could be very powerful, especially because our structure is actually in a sense more distributed, more decentralized than a variety of other Dash like forks. And I kind of touched on this topic when I was campaigning, and this is a good opportunity to kind of expand on it a little bit. And what I mean by that is that with Dash you have a certain percent of the inflation of the new supply that gets distributed to projects based on a masternode vote, right? And so you have to run this very public campaign where you're talking to a very diffused audience, and you have to get a general agreement from a general mass. And that's worked for them in a variety of ways. But there's also, like, if you go and talk to Dash people, you'll find that there's frustration in the way that some of the money has been spent. Sometimes it's been going into marketing sort of agreements that don't really end up sort of showing any results. Sometimes people run away with the money and they never come back with any product. And that I think is a consequence of the disconnection. Like it's one to the many rather than one. And obviously 80% of startups fail. So we shouldn't, we should keep that in mind, right? But at the same time, what our opportunities, we can have real sort of human intelligence looking at these agreements and keeping these agreements in check, rather than having these quote unquote smart contracts that are actually quite dumb. Smart contracts are generally very dumb. They're very very sort of binary logic, logic trees, and they don't have analog sensors. They don't really sense the analog, but humans do. So we can be the intelligence behind these contracts and make these agreements in a sort of more human sense, and still be engaging on the blockchain, and still use smart contracts to kind of balance out agreements. We can do multi-signature. There's a lot of toys that we can play with. And so I mean that would be something that would be very exciting for me to sort of have some part in, and I think we would become a kind of an example for the crypto ecosystem in general, probably, because I don't think I've heard of any other people doing anything like this. There probably is. I would imagine that there is other projects that are sort of trying to do something like this, maybe, but I don't think I've heard of it.
Well, I think, for example, Komodo pioneers, they are kind of doing, I mean, as I understood from their proposal, they are going to push some meetups during the year. So that's kind of interesting. In fact, I know about Dash proposals and everything, but maybe we are not yet at that point. But, just getting together some of the main actors on Komodo ecosystem and talking about our problems, or talking about our priorities or common things, what we would like to see done in Komodo to make our business happen. That I think that's important, even for Komodo, to get, hey, for example, we need, I don't know, we need a better mobile wallet, because several of us, we want to build a mobile wallet. So we would really appreciate to have this code, or we would put our efforts together to work on this together to advance on that. So I think it's an important part of the process. And as I said, I think there is already some teams which are pushing in that direction. I wouldn't go to Germany to have beers. I would go to Germany because I've seen a lot of meetups, and that's a cover criticism. But I've seen some meetups on Komodo community, and it seems it's everything about having beer and having fun. And okay, but I'm going to go there to make business, to discuss. And personally, I don't drink, so I don't like beer. So I know it's important also to have beer and to have fun. But let's kind of make a more professional approach for people who wants to build the project and to build business on it. So I think this would be interesting to see this happening in Komodo, and I'm sure that if at some point I see that possibility, I will join. I will join for sure. And if at some point some people say, okay, let's put some funds together to try to organize this, I will at least I will review the proposal and see how to do that.
Same, yeah. I like to sort of pay attention to that and have some involvement in that. And yeah, like the meetups, I kind of I hear what you're saying, and I I tend to agree. Like there's the meetups can be more informal, and there's a value in them insofar as people are building relationships and connections and getting to know each other and getting human, and that's a really good thing. But by the same token, something more structured and something that's sort of business purposed would probably benefit Komodo very well. We're going in long on this call now. Is there any last thoughts before we conclude? We can definitely have another call some other time, and I think I'm going to keep doing interviews like this because this has
Sure.
been very, very fun.
Yeah, let's leave it for another day. That was a great call. That was a great opportunity to talk with you, Juan. So thank you for your time, and I I hope the best for the people that tries to listen to us, because that was quite a long call. So good luck to them.
We'll have to do a little summary of the points. Thank you for your time, Kimmel. It's a pleasure, and you have a great day. Say hi to the team for me.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care. Bye bye.